This is the pumpkin pie, and these are the spices we use to prepare it. But have you ever wondered, why do we use spices in pumpkin pie, and why do we use so many of them? Even though there are a lot of videos on the history of pumpkin pies and the history of pumpkin spice latte, I haven't found a video about the spices within pumpkin pie. Let's begin with the most obvious answer to the question, given by none other than demigod of culinary history, Ken Albala himself. Spices conferred status. As expensive consumables, they denoted wealth and distinction. Prior to the 16th century, spices in Europe were extremely rare and expensive. So expensive, in fact, that sometimes they were worth more than their weight in gold. Can you imagine? They were so valued that European powers started funding exploratory voyages to find alternate routes to the spice trade. They wanted to create alternate routes to the spice trade because they had heavy reliance on the Ottoman Empire and Arab traders who had essentially a monopoly on spices. Therefore, the use of spices in pumpkin pies and in food in general was just another way for the wealthy and the elite to flex their affluence and status. And there you have it. This was the history of the spices in pumpkin pie. What do you think? Did you enjoy it? Until the next one. Bye! I'm joking, of course. About a month ago, I watched a podcast by Adam Ragusia with guest star Kenji Lopez Alt, where Adam was pondering on these questions.
Why are those the cold weather spices? Well, could it just be that they ended up in holiday dishes in the English-speaking world because they were expensive?
Adam, to answer your question, no. Spices were not just used because they were expensive, but they were used because they were thought as part of humoral medicine. For the most likely reason behind the usage of such a plethora of spices and such specific spices, I side with culinary history legend Professor Jean-Louis Flandrin. Flandrin argued that spices were so popular because of their medicinal properties. Due to those properties, they could correct or counterbalance dangerous foods. Yes, you heard that right. The histories of medicine and food teach us that certain vegetables such as cucumber and pumpkins and certain fruit like melon were considered dangerous by the prevalent medical tradition from antiquity until the late early modern era. You might be asking, why did they think that fruits and vegetables were so dangerous? I will try to give you my TLDR version of what was Galenic or humoral medicine. Humoral medicine believed that the body secretes 4 different kinds of juices or humors that were blood, yellow bile, black bile, and phlegm. And each individual had their own constitution, complexion, or temperament according to which humor was prevalent in their own body. Sanguine people were thought to have blood as the dominant humor. Phlegmatic people, phlegm. Choleric people were thought to have an excess of yellow bile, and melancholic people were thought to have an overabundance of black bile. Blood was considered hot and moist. Phlegm was considered cold and moist. Choler was hot and dry, and melancholy was cold and dry. You may be asking, why am I telling you all these classifications? But it will make sense in a little bit. One of the ways in which one could balance the humors in the body was through food and drink. In humoral dietetics, digestion was perceived as further cooking of the food within the body, or otherwise called concoction. And each food had its own humoral nature, hot or cold, and wet or dry. Here's a better explanation by Professor Ken Albala. For example, a tart apple, cold in the second degree, dry on the first degree, combined with sugar, hot in the first degree, moist in the second degree, as a corrective, would yield a dish of cold in the first degree, moist in the first degree. This would give a phlegmatic product. So the addition of cinnamon, hot to the third degree, dry to the third degree, would balance out the equation, giving a somewhat hot and dry dish. Cinnamon was perceived as hot and dry, but just a little pinch of it and being used by itself was not enough to counteract a cold and moist food. and therefore it was needed to be used in conjunction with other spices. This brings our discussions back to pumpkin pie. As many of you know, the pumpkin was unheard of in Europe prior to the Columbian Exchange. When herbal taxonomists first encountered pumpkins, they thought that they looked like melons, and that's why they called them pepons. Later, it was translated into pompions in French, and in English, they were giving the suffix kin, which means like. So they were pepon-like, melon-like. So, Nikos, you are going on and on about this, but why is this important? Stay with me, please. Apparently, melons were amongst the most dangerous foods you could eat because they were extremely cold and moist, and they could put out the fire of digestion. As Ken Albala argues in his fantastic book, Eating Right in the Renaissance, people were indeed both frightened by and attracted to melons. Imagining the melon within the stomach in contact with intense digestive heat, disintegrating, fuming, and putting out the digestive fire altogether, then picturing the onset of putrefaction and the corrupt juices being forced into the veins was enough to make anyone feel ill. And that's why to this day we eat melon with prosciutto, or in Cyprus we have watermelon with aged halloumi. The cured meats and dried dishes counteracted the cold and moist nature of melons. Since pumpkins were melon-like, physicians and herbal taxonomists classified them like melons, cold and moist. Here, I even did some primary source research for you. I went to archive.org and I found Culpeper's Herbal. Culpeper described pumpkins as the pumpkin is a moist plant under the dominion of the moon. The seed is cooling of the nature of the melon and other cold seeds and may serve very well to make emulsions. It is rarely used in medicine. If pumpkins were considered so dangerous, how can one eat it? Well, we have an answer to that, don't we? Just add a lot of sugar and spices and bake it. Who knew that after hundreds of years later, these ingredients would be added to a coffee drink, making a cultural phenomenon? And that was the medical history of pumpkin pie and the spices within it. If you enjoyed watching this video, or if you learned something from it, please like, comment, subscribe, share. Help out this channel. For all of you who watched any of my videos, liked, shared, commented, and even subscribed, thank you all very much. I am incredibly grateful for all of you. Very soon, we will reach the goal that I set for this channel. And it only took 7 months to reach 96 subscribers. When the channel will reach 100 subscribers, I will release a special video answering all the questions that you might have about the channel, about history, about food, anything you like. So, go down in the comment section and let me know if you have any questions, or hit me up in any of my social media. I also made other videos on food and drink history that you might enjoy, like this one on the history of coffee, or this one on the history of carbonara. Until the next time, bye!